So now we are on the chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita, and this chapter is about the difference between saintly versus demonic qualities, right? So the Krishna is describing which qualities are uh, considered as a saintly or divine quality and is useful for liberation, and which qualities in the human beings are considered more demonic and they create more bondage and they are just delusional and hurtful. Okay, it's a very interesting chapter. So Krishna starts. So first he talks about the divine qualities or saintly qualities. He says the fearlessness. There's no sense of fear internally. Purity of being, very pure and clear inside. Perseverance in the yoga and knowledge, firmly established in the yoga and firmly established in the knowledge. Giving, charity, and sacrifice and austerity. Right. So these are in an initial batch of these are the kind of qualities which exist in a divine person or in more saintly kind of person, right? And he further goes on. He says non-violence, not thinking about ill will to any other person and not hurting any other person. Truthfulness, very clear and straightforward and truthful to himself and to other persons also, other people also. Absence of anger and this harshness inside the behavior. So when his desires are not being fulfilled, he's not internally he's not angry, right? He could be like scolding other people and doing all these things, but internally he's clean and pure, right? Internally he's not getting angry. Renunciation, not holding, right? Not holding as much as I can or creating more desire inside. In fact, letting go more and more selfish desire and getting rid of them, right? Serenity, a very peaceful person. You can just meet these kind of people and you can see, okay, they just give a very nice feeling altogether. Very peaceful. Compassion for all beings, right? So consider everybody like them and just not doing something that they would consider somebody won't do to them. So considering compassionate, being compassionate for all the being. Freedom from desire or freedom from the greed, right? So this greed of like more. Of course, everybody has their needs, and that we are supposed to be fulfilling, but not like very greedy in terms of I need more. That kind of mindset. Gentleness, modesty, absence of cleverness, right? This cutting, this kind of a clever, crafty people who getting their way by politically correct, but behind the scene they have a different intentions. So not clever, like simple, straightforward behavior. Vigor, strength, kind of once you decide something, you do it. Forgiveness, tolerance, things are not going your way, you're still kind of okay. Freedom from the malice, ill will, right? So not really inside your mind, inside your thinking, you don't have ill will or bad hope for anybody else, right? Freedom from the pride, this arrogance and pride, I am the best. These are the divine quality, Arjuna, right? On the other hand, arrogance, I am very superior than other people. Pride, right? Again, the same, the kind of a part of arrogance. It could be other way around. I am arrogant, but I'm not getting succeed, and so I'm not being successful. Then it could be like inferiority complex kind of thing. But it's the same thing: arrogance, pride, anger. When things are not going your way, you're just becoming, tight and angry inside. Harsh, when not. Even if it is hurting other people or other animals or anything else, you don't care. It's just harshness in the behavior. Ignorance. These are the quality in the demonic nature, Arjuna. He goes in a great length in the chapter about the demonic qualities later. So then he says, the divine quality leads to liberation. The demonic quality leads to bondage. Okay, and then he says, these are the two classes of creature. These are the two classes created in this world, the divine and the demonical. The divine has been explained already in the length. He has already told many different qualities. Now here from me, Arjuna, about the demonical nature, right? So now he is going in depth. So the whole the process in Bhagavad Gita seems to be we are here in between on the right hand side, it's more like sense oriented action, right? More desire, more self oriented action, more sense oriented gratification. So one path leads to this direction, which generally and naturally we go, right? On the other hand, there is a path of liberation and self realization. So Krishna is generally trying to move Arjuna in the self realization path, which we generally don't get the education about this, right? But Krishna is in a way giving us the education about it, what it is, why you should consider it, and all these things. So he's trying to move and all the chapters before were in that direction. If you act this way, you can be liberated. If you get this knowledge, you can be liberated. If you meditate, you can move in that direction. If you do the devotion, if you understand what I'm saying, and all these different concepts and all these different things, basically he's trying to move Arjuna into the left hand side of the self realization. Let go of these sense oriented you have already entangled yourself enough. Now let's get yourself liberated from this. That seems to be primary focus of Krishna. In this chapter, Krishna is moving in this direction. What happens if you get entangled into the, what happened to the person who move in this right hand direction of self gratification and selfish behavior and all these kind of things. So what that kind of person looks like, right? Then he says, demonical men do not understand when to act and when to refrain from the action. Neither purity nor good conduct nor truth is found in them. Yeah. So he's saying basically they do not understand when they should act and when they should not act. Basically it means, for example, I am angry, right? I'm angry because my desire is not some of my selfish desires, things are not going in my way, and my desires are not being fulfilled. So I'm angry at other person, right? I'm angry at other person, I'm scolding them, I'm using harsh word, even though they might be doing their best, right? We have probably we have seen these kind of managers, but that's what he's saying in a way, right? This is not a right conduct, right? This is not the right time to act. When you are impure inside, this is not going to be good for you. This is not going to be the good for other person, because once you acted from that point of view, then it is going to create internal disharmony, right? Then you are going to get the fruit of that action, and it is going to be internally disturbing for you, right? And for that, to remove that disturbance, you might be angry at some other people also. So it's just going to create this complicated and disharmonious conditioning around you, right? So he's saying when to act. Demonical men do not understand when to act and when to refrain from the action. For example, you might have seen somebody is doing a good job, and you might just say a few good words to him to encourage him to, and that will make him feel good, that will reinforce a good behavior. But I don't think demonical person thinks like that, right? So Krishna is like, when the right action is supposed to be done, they won't do it. When they should not be acting, then that time they will be completely acting. Neither purity, like this sense of peace, calmness, and sense of purity, nor good conduct, nor truth is found in them, right? So they're completely, so their internal life and external actions are very different, right? That's the definition of hypocrisy, right? So they're internally something else, externally they project something else, right? So that's the demonical man's nature. And he's explaining their philosophy, like what is their underlying thinking which makes them do this. And this is again not a demonical person as per se. These are the qualities that we might have acted like this in some places in our life, and these are the things that we can nurture. We can become a demonical person very easily, or we can become a saintly person very easily. It depends on what we get, like where we put our attention and what we cultivate inside ourselves, right? So now he explains what is the philosophy behind this, right? So he says this universe is without any truth or basis of God, and it is only caused by the lust alone, right? And holding this view, these men of lost soul, small intelligence, and the cruel intentions come forth as the enemy of the world for its destructions, right? So basically their thinking is that there's only this sense desires, that's all, right? There's a sense desire, and there is a pleasure in the sense desire, right? There's a pleasure in the alcohol, there's a pleasure in all these things. But so he's saying there is this, their understanding is this is all there is, these sense-oriented pleasures, right? And their whole pursuit is basically to gratify them, to gratify as much as possible, because there is actually nothing else, right? and these people does not really care if somebody else is being harmed in this process, right? So they don't care about anything else other than their desires. So with the cruel intentions, like me and my desire, that's all. They come forth as an enemy of the world, and we have seen this, these world wars and all these different, what do you say, very cruel people who will only care about how they think and what they care and what they want. It doesn't really matter if it is hurting other people or it is, destroying everything around them. Okay. Attached to insatiable desire, the desire which is never going to be fulfilled, full of hypocrisy, arrogance, pride, having accepted the false notion of delusion, they work with the unclean resolves, right? So they are attached to this. So another problem here is that he is pointing out, they are attached to unsatiable desire, right? They are attached to desire itself, right? The object, they think that I want this object, but it's not the object. Once the object is there, they are going to do something else, right? So it's never the object, it's the desire itself they get attached to. And once you get attached to the desire itself, it's a big problem, because this desire is never going to be satisfied, right? Even at the time of your deathbed, you're still having desires, right? It's never going to be fulfilled. The desire, the nature of desire is such, right? And these kinds of sense desires. So attached to this kind of insatiable desire, full of hypocrisy, arrogance, and pride, having accepted this false notion through delusion, they work with the unclean resolves, right? So they are firm about, like, I want to do this, I want to complete my desires and all these kind of things, but these are impure kind of resolves, right? The more they do it, the more disharmonious this becomes, right? Clinging to immeasurable anxiety, ending only in death, with gratification of desire as their highest aim, convinced that this is all there is, right? So clinging to immeasurable anxiety, right? So the more desire we have, the more it gets gratified, the more it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And of course, with the desire comes a lot of anxiety, right? It's just, we have to do a lot of work. We are afraid if what we have achieved will be lost, and then there's so much anxiety and things are not so simple, right? I desire something, I will go and have it. It's not as simple as that, right? You have to struggle a lot in the process, and then there's so much different kind of anxiety. Different people are, you have to compete with the different people and all these kind of stuff. Clinging to immeasurable anxiety, ending only in the death, gratification of desire as their highest aim, convinced that this is all. Bound by 100 snares of hope, devoted to desire and anger. So desire and anger is the kind of two sides of the same coin. The desire is the desire. If you don't get your desire fulfilled, you become angry. They seek to obtain by unjust means hoard of wealth for gratification of their desire. So now what they do is, now once they have this kind of hundreds of desire inside themselves, or they have attached themselves to desire itself, now they try to hoard the wealth, and they are ready to do it with unjust means, right? They are ready to do with with any wrong, or unjust is probably the right word. Any unjust means they are willing to get that wealth, so that they can fulfill their desires, right? And that creates a big disharmony inside yourself, right? When we are doing these kind of actions, are also going to bring fruits, right? And the fruit of these kind of action is extremely disharmonious mind, right? Once you do something with the impure intention, there is like it creates internal disharmony, right? So they seek to obtain by unjust means hoard of wealth for the gratification of their desire. Now he's talking about their thinking, like how they are thinking inside their mind. This has been obtained by me today, so this desire I shall attain. This is mine, and this wealth also will be mine in the future. This enemy has been slain by me, that I shall tomorrow. I am the Lord, I am the enjoyer, I am the successful, I am the powerful and happy. That is their internal thinking, right? Which is driving all this behavior. I am wealthy and high-born, who else is equal to me? I shall sacrifice, I shall give, I shall rejoice. They are deluded by that. Thus they are deluded by the ignorance. led astray by many imagining, enveloped in the net of delusion, attached to the gratification of desire, they fall into the foul hell. Again, the hell is not kind of a place but a state of mind. Their state of mind is so corrupt at this point that they won't have any meaningful relationship at that point, or they don't have, the sensitivity left to feel what is, a gentle, pure heart feels like. So, by many imagining, enveloped in a net of delusion, attached to the gratification of desire, they fall into foul hell. Self-conceit, stubborn, filled with the pride and arrogance of the wealth, they perform the sacrifice for the name of the sacrifice, right? So these people are also could be very much, they are donating to this charity or that charity to kind of display or to kind of pose as a charitable person, but their internal intentions are not there. And then, so now Krishna is giving basic advice. He says, this is the threefold gate for hell, right? Destruction of the self and the destruction of the self, right? So this is how you are moving in the other direction. Instead of, you should be moving in the direction of the self-realization, purity, saintliness, all this kind of stuff. These three things are going to take you in the other direction: desire, anger, and greed, right? So therefore, one should abandon these three things. It's making a clear suggestion here. You should be careful about desire, anger, and greed, and you should, evaluate their nature. We all have probably gone through all these things. We have been angry, we have been, desirous, and we have been greedy, and all this kind of stuff. But what he's saying is, you at least, pay attention to their nature, what they do, right? Don't just blindly start to follow these impulses of desire, anger, and greed. Released from these three gates of darkness, these are three gates of darkness. A man does what is best for himself, then he goes to the highest goal. He who acts under the impulse of desire, casting aside the injunction of right and wrong, does not attain the perfection, nor attain happiness, nor attain any higher goal. So basically, again, he's just pointing it out. This path of desire, anger, and greed is kind of a tricky path, kind of a very dangerous path. So you should be careful, and you should at least examine their nature, right? Just don't take it because they does feel desire and the greed and the anger. There is this sense of pleasure in them. But if you do this cost-benefit analysis based on this, what he is proposing here, you will know like this is just unreasonable deal.